One Tiny Turtle by Nicola Davies. Far, far out to sea, land is only a memory. An empty sky touches the water. Just beneath the surface is a tangle of weed and driftwood where tiny creatures cling. This is the nursery of a sea turtle. Passing in a boat, you might not notice the turtle. Not much bigger than a bottle top, she hides in the green shadows. She's a baby, so her shell is soft as old leather. Just a little fish bite could rip it open. But the turtle is safe in her world of weed and snaps her beak on tiny crabs and shrimps. The turtle swims around, flapping her long front flippers like wings. She's flying underwater. She pokes her pinprick nostrils through the silver surface to take a quick breath so fast, blink and you'd miss it. Then she's gone, diving down into her secret life again. For 3 or 4 years, maybe more, the turtle rides out the storms and floats through the hot calms. Steadily, she outgrows her nursery. Nobody sees her leave, but when you look for her, she's vanished all the same. A year or 2 later, she turns up close to land, bigger than a dinner plate now. She's not a fish snack anymore. Her shell is hard as armor. Her head is tough as a helmet. She's grown into her name, Loggerhead. She has come to eat crabs. Millions swim up from deep water to breed in the shallows. Their shells crack as easily as hen's eggs in her heavy jaws, but in a week the feast is over, and Loggerhead disappears again. Loggerhead wanders far and wide in search of food. In summer to cool seaweed jungles where she finds juicy clams and shoals of shrimps, and in winter to turquoise lagoons, warm as a bath where she can munch among corals. Loggerhead may travel thousands of miles, but she leaves no trace or track for you to follow. Only good luck will catch you a glimpse of her. For 30 years you might not find her, then one summer night she arrives on the beach where she was born. She's found her way here, sensing north and south like a compass needle, feeling the current and the warmth of the waves. She remembers the taste of the water here and the sound of the surf. Loggerhead has grown into her wandering years. She's as big as a barrel now. Floating in the sea, she weighs nothing, but on land, she's heavier than a man, so every flipper step is a struggle, and her eyes stream with salty tears which help her keep them free of sand. Loggerhead makes her nest where the sea won't reach. Scooping carefully with her hind flippers, she makes a steep, deep hole. Inside, she lays her eggs like 100 squidgy ping-pong balls. Afterwards, she covers them with sand to hide her nest from hungry mouths. Then Loggerhead is gone again, back to her secret life. Left behind under the sand, her eggs stay deep and safe. Baby turtles grow inside, and before the summer's over, they wriggle from their shells. Above them on the beach, 100 eyes watch, on the lookout for a meal, so the hatchlings wait until night. Then they burst through the sand and skitter toward the sea. In the dark, claws and beaks and grabbing paws miss only one young turtle. One day, she'll remember this beach and come back. But now she dives under the waves and swims and swims out into the arms of the ocean. Far, far out to sea, land becomes a memory, waiting to wake in the head of the little turtle. Joan Proctor, Dragon Doctor, by Patricia Valdez. Back in the days of long skirts and afternoon teas, a little girl named Joan Proctor entertained the most unusual party guests. Slithery and scaly, they turned over teacups, they crawled past the crumpets. While other girls read stories about dragons and princesses, Joan read books about lizards and crocodiles. Instead of a favorite doll, a favorite lizard accompanied her wherever she went. Each day after school, Joan retreated to her bedroom where she studied lizards, snakes, and turtles. She took careful notes, just like a scientist. And on the days Joan was too sick to attend school, tiny toes and eager eyes cheered her up. The reptiles were quiet and watchful, just like Joan. For her 16th birthday, Joan received a most curious gift, a baby crocodile. She tied a little ribbon around his waist and took him for a walk. She even brought him to math class one day. The students shrieked, the teacher recoiled. Apparently, crocodiles were not welcome at school. When Joan grew older, she skipped the parties and dances with her friends. Instead, she sought out the curator of reptiles and fish at the Natural History Museum. There, Joan and the curator talked snake scales, size, shape, texture, patterns, and even evolution. Sometimes, Joan smuggled in her crocodile to the delight of the curator. He knew right away that Joan was special. But soon, these carefree days came to an end. England was at war. Women took up jobs left behind by men. The curator found himself short-staffed at the museum, so he hired Joan as his assistant. Joan flourished at the Natural History Museum. As a scientist, she surveyed the museum's vast collections and published research papers on pit vipers and pancake tortoises. As an artist, she created exquisite models and drawings for the reptile exhibits. When the curator retired, Joan took over. Men returning from war were surprised to find a woman in charge, but times were changing, and Joan was leading the way. A few years later, the London Zoo decided to replace its old, outdated reptile house. The zoo director asked Joan to design a new home for the animals. Joan knew exactly how to keep reptiles happy. She added elaborate lighting and state-of-the-art heaters that provided hot spots to keep the cold-blooded animals warm. She brought in plants and created artwork that mimicked each animal's natural environment. Joan took extra care designing one enclosure in particular. By this time, stories had emerged of a fierce man-eating lizard with a long forked tongue living on the faraway Indonesian island of Komodo. It was rumored to be 30 feet long, faster than a motor car, stronger than an ox. They called it the Komodo dragon. The stories didn't frighten Joan. She dreamed of studying the dragons up close. On opening day of the new reptile house, visitors packed the zoo. They gawked at the geckos, they peered at the pythons, they marveled at the monitors. But when they reached Joan's special enclosure, they gasped. 2 7-foot-long lizards stared back at them. Real-life dragons. Although the visitors were thrilled, Joan was concerned. One of the Komodo dragons, Sumbawa, did not look well. To the shock of the zoo guests, Joan entered the enclosure. She moved Sumbawa to the reptile clinic with the help of 6 nervous keepers. The dragon let Joan clean a sore in his mouth with no fuss at all. In fact, he thanked Joan by licking her face. Joan thought Sumbawa was brave. The keepers thought that Joan was brave. News of Joan and the Komodo dragons spread. Reporters flocked to the reptile house with questions. Has she ever been bitten? Was she afraid of the dragons? What kind of woman runs a reptile house? Joan wished the reporters would ask about the animals instead. Joan cared for each and every creature in the reptile house. From daily health checks to delicate surgeries, her dedication and talent could not be matched. Scientists all over the world read about Joan's research, her clinical skills, and the success of the new reptile house. She became an international sensation. The Zoological Society of London invited Joan to present her Komodo dragon research at a scientific meeting. As Joan took the stage, she wheeled out Sumbawa, sitting freely atop a large table. The audience squirmed in their seats. Joan stroked Sumbawa's head and fed him a pigeon. He ate it in one gulp. Sumbawa wondered through the audience as Joan explained that the reports of Komodo dragons were greatly exaggerated. They could grow up to 10 feet, not 30. They ran fast, but not as fast as a motor car. They could be fierce, but they were mostly gentle. When Joan finished her presentation, Sumbawa returned to her side. The audience erupted in applause. Joan's passion for reptiles never waned. For the rest of her life, she could be found walking or riding through the zoo with Sumbawa by her side. And just like when she was a little girl, Joan often hosted children's tea parties at the reptile house with her scaly friends. Sumbawa was the guest of honor.